Okay, so in the last video, I showed you guys how can you create your first endpoint using Firebase Studio and also on the Firebase function. So we create our first endpoint, which doesn't do that much. You call and then add the log. So now we're going to create a real endpoint that it's going to be using to add the log to Google login project, but that can be used in a real scenario N8N for us to track everything. I'm just want to share with you what I have been thinking and what I'm gonna do in this endpoint, okay, in this API. So I want to know which workflow is running that is produced the log. I want to know which action is doing, and I want to know the node that it was executed, and also some data, okay? And then I want to know what type the log. It was an error, it was just warning or info. So I want to know those things because different type of the log, we might have to act differently, okay? So you have my screen here that I'm sharing. So first, this was the first endpoint, okay? I'm gonna show you something. Since this thing has Gemini integrate, I'm gonna use Gemini to help me build this endpoint and see what I'm gonna be doing. I'm gonna try. It might work, it might doesn't work. I'm gonna say this. Need to create new let's say Firebase, I will say Firebase function HTTP trigger that is going to be called to send the logs. Okay, basically this and this new HTTP, I will say this new function HTTP trigger can be called, let's say, I will say logs, and it's a HTTP post method. You can use the Express to add this new function trigger. Okay, let's see if it will help us. Okay, so let's see what it's gonna say. But okay, so look, I want to review the change. This is the log. This is the body, and it put the log here, okay? And this HPI request logs, okay, everything looks good to me. Everything looks good to me. So this is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna update the file. So now this file, we have this new endpoint, which is paused, and then we have the body, which is whatever it is, okay? And then it receive a logs, okay? I'm just log everything as an info. But and then it will respond to log received. As you know, the next step, what are we gonna do? We're gonna deploy this change. Okay, let's make sure it get deployed. So basically deploy. Okay, it asked me to log in again. Okay, so you always have to have your projects. In this case, on the Firebase Studio, authenticate with your Firebase, so from this project you can use Firebase CLA command. This is one example that I use, Firebase deploy, to deploy things. Okay, so I have some ESLint error, but let's fix. Strings must be duplicate. Okay, so he doesn't want me to use a single quote, so it has to be double quote. Okay, everything, save it. And then let's deploy again, okay? So now after deploy, I think this is gonna be different because this new endpoint is gonna be API. And in this API, when we wanna call this endpoint, we have to put whatever is API log. okay? So again, you know, when the deployment finish, this is what's going to happen. We're going to have another function here, function name, that in this case maybe we'll call API log, that's going to be triggered to the HTTP request, because that's what I create. Ahead of the time, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to come in here on this API. I'm going to start to create, I'm going to say logs. As you know, it's going to be a post, and then on the body, I'm going to send the type JSON, okay? So one thing that I'm going to send is the workflow name. So basically, I want to know which workflow that's being run, okay? Then I'm going to say type. So I want to send a type to log. Let's say I want to send the info, okay? Another thing, I want to put an action, okay? So what is the action? What is doing, okay? What is doing, okay? I can say the action. I can say, for example, new comment from Instagram. That's the action, okay? This is one example, okay? And then I have to say the node is like you have the workflow has the several node, which node it's running. So in the specific, when the node process, you send a log as a result of that node, okay? So this node, let's say set, whatever the name you give the node, set fields. This is the one that I use a lot, okay? So there might be some data, okay? There might be some data. I'm just going to say ID here because I don't know what data is going to be. For each node, everything data is going to be different. I'm just say ID, okay? Okay, so I'm going to say the title, okay? I'm going to say mapping fields from Facebook for, let's say, for IG comment, okay? So you can find out more information to send to log to make it very helpful for you when you're gonna do the investigation, okay? So now I'm going to the Firebase Studio. Look, deployment's complete. So now when I refresh here, I'm gonna see another function. And the function is gonna be API, and this is the endpoint to access this function, okay? So this is the endpoint, but remember this function is gonna have, let's say this function is gonna have a lot of endpoint. One of them is the logs, which is the, let's go, is the logs, exactly is the logs, okay? So now this is what happened, okay? This is what happened. When I call this endpoint, it should call the backend, okay? It should call this endpoint and it should add this log here. For example, if I come here to this endpoint and say, I want to see the log, it should be empty. Not empty because it tracked the deployment. It tracked the deployment. When you deploy, it generates some log here, but it has never been called. So I'm going to call this first time. But then if the call is successful, it should return me like logs received. Let's do that. Look, logs received. And then if I come here to this export log, which is where I'm gonna check all, I'm gonna see all the log generated by N8N. Look, logs received. If I click on it and then you go to the structured data, I'm gonna see action, new comment from EJ, the data, the name, everything. And this log, it was an info log, okay? When there is an error log, it's gonna all be here. The severity is very important, okay? So, well, I think this is the base that you need to know how to create an API, use Firebase function. So now you can create any API you want, okay? But for this case is the API that's gonna receive a log from the N8N automation. Look, I'm gonna show you how from the N8N, you're gonna send a log, which is pretty much the same. N8N has a HTTP request. All you're gonna do is call it, okay? And then you're gonna call it, and then you're gonna call it, and then it's gonna, do you know what I mean? It's gonna receive and store. And then when you wanna investigate what happened in your N8N, you come to this Google Platform Cloud that I have myself to see everything, to explore. Okay, so now you see JSON payload, everything is here. So you see, you can check everything. Okay. Okay. So I hope you find this part of the video very helpful, and then I'm going to see you in the next video where I'm going to use this endpoint on N8N to track everything. Okay. Thank you so much, and see you in the next video. By the way, my name is Justiniano Alves, and help me grow my channel. Do that. If you like this, drop something on the comments. Say, Justiniano, you're awesome. Something, anything to help me. Okay. Bye bye. See you in the next video.